Salutations, utopians. Hope all is well in your world. Global here. Um, there was 3 games today in the WNBA. Shout out to Coco Gauff winning uh, her championship this morning. Today's also Allen Iverson's birthday. But what I want to talk about is the Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky. For those who don't know, Caitlin Clark was not available today, but this is their second meeting this season. Where the conflict arrives between the Chicago Sky right now is for a second year they look abysmal and they're getting blown out. And this time they got blown out without Caitlin Clark even playing. And I'm watching it and I'm just like, this is crazy because, you fire a legend in Teresa Witherspoon, who's one of the original members of the New York Liberty team that played in the first ever game in the WNBA 28 years ago. And you bring in Tyler Marsh, who was on the royal staff of the Las Vegas Aces, who also has the first ever expansion team in Golden State, first ever franchise in Golden State, the expansion Valkyries, and also the first Asian coach in the uh, that came from that, Becky Hammond, 3-time champion, or 2-time champion Las Vegas Aces, however many, but they won multiple rings over there, and they have 4 Olympians last year who represented the country. And it was to much of people's dismay seeing Teaspoon get one and done on the grand stage, but Chicago did what they felt they needed to do. The person calling the shots, Jeff Pagliuca, um, is a former trainer. He was in charge of player development for the Chicago Sky, and for whatever reason, ownership felt comfortable labeling him with the title after hiring Teresa Witherspoon, mind you, as the GM. And I'll say, first off, that's where the first mistake was made. If you're going to bring in a trainer, if you're going to hire a GM after the head coach, that's already starting off bad. I think it's backwards. Uh, Also, um, this GM that's in charge should be coaching the team based on his resume. He's closer to being a head coach than he is qualified to be a GM. Just because you evaluate talent and train talent doesn't mean that you can see if a player what a player's potential is and what they're going to how they're going to translate. And so uh, you watch what's going on with Chicago. The decisions have been head scratching to say the least. Let's go to the draft last year. They take Camila Cordosa of the national champion South Carolina Gamecats, spearheaded by Dawn Staley, who's now in the booth talking women's hoops. And um, she's a 6'7" rim protecting post scorer. And that's understandable with that resume, but then the contradiction began when they traded up to draft Angel Reese. Angel Reese, as you know, is part of the LSU team that is what springboarded this entire women's movement and bringing the light and jump starting it. And then obviously, what was the storyline? Who's this Midwestern traditional white girl going into the hood of LSU, or the, you know, just quite frankly, yeah, going in there on a team that's super cultured and playing loose, and then going out there and not being afraid of the moment, not being intimidated. Long story short, Angel Reese is not given the respect she's owed for what she has done for the game. She was the initial buzz, and then Caitlin came after. And Angel was, prior to her injuries in Maryland, she could actually dunk the ball. She was dunking the ball in high school, even. Very explosive athlete prior to the catastrophic injury she had to endure. And Chicago, instead of letting her go to somewhere like the Mystics and be in the DMV, which could have been the equivalent to like Derrick Rose going to Chicago, or LeBron in Cleveland, they elected to trade up and put her in the big market of Chicago. And when doing so, that's where the first conflict of interest began, because stylistically wise, Angel Reese likes to operate out of the post, and Camila Cardoso is also bread and butter is in the post. Really has no choice, because laterally as 6'7", it's going to be difficult. And Cardoso started the season slowed up because of injuries, and when she got back, they had to work her into condition while you have Angel Reese, who's solely in the paint. And I think that was where the first mistake was. Angel Reese is a big in college, but when you get to the W with real grown women, that Brahma Bull style, that Zach Randolph, let me feel where you are before I go up, becomes the problem. And um, so now you got a situation where um, so now you have this situation where you're like, okay, um, you have this situation where she's crowding the paint and you have no flow. One thing that Teaspoon could have done was move her over to small forward. This is something Doc Rivers could have done with Blake Griffin with all those Lob City years. Put Chris Wilcox at the four, uh, with DJ at the five, but instead just DeAndre Jordan. But instead, coaches do what coaches do. And this year, Tyler Marsh implemented a style where she does bring the ball up. She does play a little bit kind of point forward role. And she needs to explore more in that bag. She really does need to watch Hartenstein and his floater game, um, and stop trying to fill out her defender and drop her shoulder and lead with her shoulder before going up. And ultimately, what it's caused is, it is a slight improvement, but they're still getting blown out. What also makes this season weird is the orchestration of the lineup. They go super veteran with Ariel Atkins and Vandersloot this season because last year they didn't have really a primary ball handler. However, national sensation Kennedy Carter, who's now playing in Mexico after winning MVP and playing in China, uh, Kennedy Carter they didn't have someone who's actually a floor general. Dana Evans, for whatever reason, didn't see light. They also have a very versatile Nunye girl over there who's very polished, who doesn't get any kind of minutes. Playing her next to Reese instead of Cardoso sometimes, but the problem is obviously Cardoso's resume and where she is. But the Sky made Big's mistake to me by pairing them together, because if you really wanted it to be a rivalry, then you should have not paired them together. If you needed a rivalry, then feed off of the LSU South Carolina battle, not trying to force this artificial Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. That's not a real thing. Angel can't guard Caitlin. There's no point of that. And instead they play in the troll game. And the problem is like her fellow, as I talked about yesterday, same thing that's battling Doris right now. Once the trolls get on you, now it's hard to push your brand forward because you're now being joked on and treated like a clown, and it screws everything up. This is why Kevin Durant, even though there was never a Kevin Durant before Kevin Durant, is not being talked about the way he needs to, which is top 10 all-time category, Mount Rushmore, because he's getting constantly trolled for his decision to join the Golden State Warriors and how he engages himself with the people on Twitter and social media. This is a guy, let me tell you, how many players that came before him that they tried to make him. Jonathan Bender, Nikolai Skidishvili, former Denver Nugget, Yi Jinlin from China, Austin Day. There's so many players that they tried to make before he got there. And the mere fact that where he is in his career today, where he's not being spoken about in with a deep reverence and with the utmost respect, because he made a decision that subjected himself to the trolls, and now the league is in that category and it doesn't help that Chicago continues to play this social media game by drafting Haley Van Lith when you had Sonia Citron available. You could have went and got Sonia Citron, who falls to the Washington Mystics, but you instead want to play the social media game. Haley Van Lith is not better than Sonia Citron on any given day. They also used the pick on Slovenian sharpshooter Shivka, who's not even coming over this year. This is another move that was made by Jeff Pagliuca, who was, like I said, the former trainer, moved to being the front office guy when he should have been the head coach. Only he knows what he's trying to do. That's what I'm saying. These odd fits. They drafted 4 rookies. They're losing by wide margins. The Sky don't even have a pick next year in the first round. And so, you know, the rivalry is affected, and it's ironic because we had just yesterday the ruling of the Ed O'Bannon. Speaking of rivalries and all that, you got Full Wiley leaving South Carolina, who signed to Under Armour, who Steph Curry's endorsing. Speaking of Warriors, Kevin Durant, all that, and she goes and joins LSU. The rivalry is what basketball needs. Not men, not men, yeah, not men, not women, not college, not pro. Uniformity is needed in from both sides to keep the game at its best. When you have the pipeline between college hoops and the NBA, that is when it's winning. When you have the rivalries, that's when it's winning. But when you got people transferring over here from one rival to another, and you got players playing on the same team at the next level, it's no point of pressing the reset button on what's already right there made for destiny. A substantive battle like Cardoso versus Reese would have been equivalent to Mourning versus Ewing. You have a real sum instead of trying to force race debates and fake outrage and agendas and all this other toxic nonsense that really is going to just turn people off. They're going to get their TV deal, and after this year, people don't even want to watch the game because there's all this extra stuff. If I say, and it's not just them two, if I say I like Nafisa Collier, that you got a certain demographic that like, what you got against Asia? Nothing. It's just you can't deny how great Nafisa Collier is and what she's doing. It's the same thing. If a play and Nike got caught into it, and ironically now they're getting pushed out of America, and now conveniently they want to push Asia Wilson. When they're getting boxed out of it, you're looking at the NBA Finals. You see Puma versus Converse, right? It's no one thing should be bigger than the brand of basketball. It should always be about the product and the purity. I keep saying it. I have nothing against anybody. Nothing should come before the product. And there's so many sidetrack distractions and nothing else at the end of the day. The golden ticket. The NBA is like the basketball, the leagues are like the bond. It's like a bond, it's like gold. It can never deflate. It is a steady asset. All the things around it can fall off by the wayside and come and go, but the actual foundation, the common ground, is the game. And so when you have these guys doing all this extra nonsense when you already, that's why the NFL thrives. Nothing comes before the product. Nothing's bigger than the shield. And the WNBA is just because has subjected themselves and have left themselves open and cause for trolling, and the trolling is going to be the demise if you're not careful, because some of us don't want. If I say I support this league, it immediately opens a pipeline to, oh, is that the political party you're affiliated with also? It's like, wait a minute, I'm just watching because I like sports. But once you subject and you get into all these different roles, in the long run it might be cool for temporary headlines, but in the long run it actually becomes more detrimental than it's worth. Let that sink in. So, I don't know at this point what the league is going to do, because tonight has put it to bed. Caitlin Clark's not even playing, and they got smoked off the floor, and I think they were at home even. So there's nowhere to go but up. I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually do make a run some point this season. But Chicago's become so desperate. They even now are trying to retire Candace Parker, who was there for only, I think, 2-3 years. Yes, she won a championship, but she was there for like 1 or 2 years because she's from Chicago, I guess. They want to retire. Like, they're doing all. Courtney Vandersloot comes back. She's the all-time franchise leader in scoring. They're trying all these different things, and it's like, you got this you got this old backcourt, you got the super young front court. It has to be more blended, and that's why I said at the end of the day, the GM needs to come down from the front office and be the one to coach. I'm not calling. This has nothing to do with Tyler Marsh, but you keep bringing in coaches and all this other stuff. It's your job at this point, because only you know what you're thinking, trying to orchestrate this uniquely orchestrated roster renovation project that they got going on. So I think that's everything. I don't want to get into too much rambling, but that pretty much covers all bases. I hope this was informative, Utopians. I'll try to do better next time. Global out.